Hello again, football fans, and welcome. Welcome to 2025. Welcome to RFL Season 9. Welcome, most importantly, to Miners Live. So, for those of you that don't know, uh, the RFL season is less than a week away. The RFL season will kick off on Monday night. And it just so happens that your boy will be traveling to London to take on the defending RFL Reload Bowl champion, London Bulldogs. So the RFL kickoff is on Monday night. It will feature the Sacramento Miners traveling to London to take on the London Bulldogs. I am your host for this evening, head coach, general manager, and owner of the Sacramento Miners. Welcome to those of you that don't know. Welcome to those of you that have never seen an episode of Miners Live. Those of you that have never even watched an RFL game. We welcome you. I welcome you. Thank you for tuning in. This will be the first of many episodes, as you guys all know. I'm going to try to stick to a pretty tight schedule in terms of Tuesday nights at 7:00. I think it'll work out pretty well because we'll have the final game of the week on Monday, and then I'll be able to go right into Miners Live on Tuesday, and then there should usually be the RFL podcast, the official RFL podcast on Wednesday. And then we'll roll into the games on Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So I mean, for those of you that are new out there, for those of you that are watching this for the very first time and are completely new to the RFL, clear your schedule for the next 7 months. Okay. That's just what you have to do. Okay. I understand that some of you have jobs, but they're probably part-time jobs. So you're fine. Clear the schedule, because you don't really have a day off. And I'm not talking about your actual job. I'm talking about the RFL. There isn't much of a day off. So we're going to have games kicking off, I believe. Now, I don't quote me on this, because obviously we have not seen the official RFL schedule release yet. But I would imagine that throughout the season, the schedule will be similar to years past, where we will have a game on Thursday night, a game on Friday night, and then a game, probably a couple games on Saturday, a couple games on Sunday, and then a game on Monday. Or depending on how, the broadcast schedule will work. But typically there's the only days off usually during the RFL season are Tuesday and Wednesday. And so that's why I'm here for you guys on Tuesday, because why wouldn't I be? Why wouldn't your favorite team and favorite owner in the league provide you with all the things that you need on one of the only 2 days of the week where there is no RFL content? I'm not here for myself. I'm here for you. And unless you are an alumni of the University of Miami or the Ohio State University, I'm here for you. I am absolutely here for everyone outside of those two, because I don't want to hear it. And can I just say, can I be the first person to say out loud in a public forum, boy, am I glad Ohio State lost. And boy, am I glad the college series is over. If I had to watch one more person talk about Ohio State, or one more person talk about Clemson, I was done. I had my letter of resignation already written. I had sent it over, and it was just waiting to be signed. I was done. College series, yeah, you're fun, you're cute, but now it's game time, right? Like, this is where the big boys play. You guys can all get together in a room and you can have your little fun, but at the end of the day, this is what we play for. This is it. RFL kickoff season 9 is Monday night. Sacramento Miners at London Bulldogs. Let's go take a look in the chat and see who we have. I'm going to do a little roll call here. A lot of you guys I already know, and welcome again. Welcome back. I appreciate you being here. I'm going to try to find some new people here, see if I can find someone. And again, guys, they might not be new, but they might be new to me, because if they are not used to the RFL and they're not used to Miners Live and they're only here from the past 1 or 2 college seasons, that's going to be new to me. So what do we got? We got Mac in the chat. Good to see you, buddy. I will say, Alvin Mack, I am very grateful, and I'll get into this in a little bit here. I'm going to get into some of the RFL realignment. So for those of you that don't know, there is realignment now in the RFL, and we'll go over some of those changes. But I am grateful that realignment did not take away the rivalry between the Sacramento Miners and the Oklahoma City Bisons. That rivalry will remain. And so for that, Alvin Mack, a tip of the proverbial cap to you. I look forward to seeing you throughout the season. And I really look forward to rubbing it in your face when Miles McCain throws for 302 on you, and you guys go 0-2 against us on the season. So cheers to that. Who else we got in the chat? I see a lot of our guys from the locker room. Anthony Fry, the captain, El Capitan. Good to see you, buddy. Ajon Grant is in the chat here. So many of you guys don't know, and I'll go over it a little bit later on. Some of the off-season moves, the free agent acquisitions, some trades that were made, but also some of the rookies. And Ajon Grant was the first overall pick from the Miners. I believe 12th overall. Ajon, I completely forget. I want to say I took you 12th, maybe 14th. But Ajon Grant rocking number 2 this season. Good to have him on the squad. And then another first-round pick. So we had 2 first-round picks this year, Ajon Grant, and then also later in the first round, getting Steve Washington, the running back out of Maryland. So good to see you in the chat there, buddy. Who else we got? We got QPOC. Wow, I haven't seen you in a minute, dude. Good to see you. Hope things are going well. Hope you had a good holiday. Who else do we got here? McCain, I talk to you almost every day, so I'm not going to say hi to you, even though I kind of just did. Rodney Goins. There's a name I haven't seen in a long time. Who else we got? Oh, yeah, I said Maryland. I meant Louisville. Darius Hodge, why are you here? Why? Did you get invited? Who invited Hodge? Who? Why? I'm kidding, buddy. Love you. Let's see. Yeah. All right. So I teased this a little bit a minute ago, but yes, there is some realignment this year for the RFL. So for those of you that have been watching the RFL in years past, know that with Madden 25, we now have the ability to have all 32 teams in one file. All 32 teams are in one file. Historically, we weren't able to do that. We had one file that had the ARC, one file that had the NRC. There was automatic wins every time your team went against another team from a different conference. It was kind of wonky, but it was all that we could do. There was nothing we could do about it. It also meant that records were a little bit inflated because you were automatically going to get 4 and in the last year or two, 5 automatic wins. So even the worst team in the league was going to go 5-12. So, we don't have to worry about that anymore. And I know personally, I'm super excited about that. I think that this realignment is going to be good. I think the biggest takeaway here for you guys is that realignment now brings new teams to new cities. So historically, Sacramento, for example, we had the Sacramento Miners, but we also had the Sacramento Condors. Now, all one file, the ability to realign a little bit and relocate even further. The Condors are now in San Jose. They're not in Sacramento. They're in San Jose. So Sacramento Miners, San Jose Condors. All right. And so I'm going to go into this realignment, but to help me go through some of this new realignment this year and how the divisions will break down and the new cities that are represented in the RFL, I'm going to bring in a good buddy of mine, recently elected one of the 3 defensive captains of the team this year. Say hello to my good buddy Killian Bain. What's going on, bud?
Hey, how y'all doing? I'm great, actually. You know, just coming off a cold, but we're getting healthy.
Are you in a white? Are you in a white room? Like, are you just having your own little private white party right now?
Basically.
Did they run out of? Were they out of stock in the white headphones on Amazon? Is that why you went with the green?
Well, to be fair, okay. So I've had these for like more than 2 years now. So that's and they work.
Is that your Baylor? Or is that your Baylor represent?
You know, yes. I need a little. Go with that. Yes, I need a little color green in my life. You know, just to break apart the white that you see before you.
Yeah.
You know, but
I mean, I can't really get on board with the green headphones and the aqua blue PlayStation controller, but you know, I feel like maybe you could have stepped it up a little bit. Maybe you could have gone with a yellow controller and the green headphones if you really wanted to rock, you know, the Baylor pride. But all right,
that's true.
I got you.
I mean, technically, I had these before I got that, and I only needed that because my other one broke. So,
all right. Well, we just need to get you a big like Sacramento Miners poster to put like right behind you there in that room.
Yeah, I need something to match this.
Yeah, there you go.
That's for sure. I need something to match this.
Little Miners tumbler. I got my little Miners Yeti here.
I love that.
All right, so you kind of came on at a good time because obviously the realignment in the RFL is completely new to everybody.
Yes.
The entire league being in one file is completely new to everybody. So let's just kind of go over this. I'll kind of throw it out to you. I'll grab a division here, throw it out to you, and you can kind of tell me what your thoughts are. And we can just kind of go from there. But real quick, let's look at some RFL realignment here for you guys. So that way you have an idea as to what I'm talking about. So here it is right here. Historically, if you look on the left-hand side of your screen right now, the old divisions in the RFL, the way that the RFL was previously broken up, you had the ARC and the NRC, which remains the same, and you have the North, South, East, and West, which remains the same. But with the ability to put all 32 teams inside of the same file, and the ability to make sure that we don't have multiple teams within the same city. And it wasn't really that we didn't want multiple teams in the same city. It was more so it's really cool to be able to say that you've got 32 different cities and 32 different parts of the country represented. It just helps the overall reach of the RFL, right? I mean, there's people out there. Here's an example for us, right? Like I know Rohan is not an RFL player. He's not a college series player. He's just a
fan.
He's a resident of Sacramento. And so he was a fan of the league. He became a fan of the Miners, and he's literally just a dude in Sacramento who is now a Sacramento Miners fan. And so I think it's exciting to see where the league goes from here. Because there are some cities that are now represented in the RFL that were not previously represented. So let's take a look here. Top left-hand corner, Killian, we've got the ARC North.
Yes.
Historically was the Toronto Huskies, the Chicago Cougars, the Brooklyn Bulls, and the Columbus Aviators. Now, the Toronto Huskies stay in the ARC North. the Chicago Cougars stay in the ARC North. However, we now have the Pioneers, which previously were in the ARC West in, I believe, Salt Lake City, are now in Pittsburgh, and they're in the ARC North. So the Pittsburgh Pioneers, and then also we have previously the Portland Riverhogs have been relocated from also the ARC West, and they relocated to Cincinnati. And so now we have the Cincinnati Hogs. So we've got the Toronto Huskies, the Chicago Cougars, the Cincinnati Hogs, and the Pittsburgh Pioneers. Killian, what say you about the new ARC North, and what are you most excited about or most intrigued by this realignment here?
Well, first and foremost, for the ARC North, I believe that what gets me most excited about is the influx of new and young QBs, right? Like with the past off season, we've got for the Cougars, we got McCall, who was traded from the Knights, right? We have that QB competition up there in Pittsburgh. And then we have why am I blanking? How dare I blank?
On who? So before you go any further, I don't know that it's a quarterback. What did you say? Controversy?
Competition.
Oh, competition.
Yes, competition.
I honestly feel like it's Javier Santana's job, right? Like I don't know. I could be completely wrong, but I feel like it's a new regime. It's a new franchise, basically.
Mm-hmm.
You're in a new city. Let the new guy eat, right? I think the Pittsburgh Pioneers turn it over to Javier Santana.
The only reason why I call it a competition is because we haven't seen enough of Santana because he was a backup all throughout the season, and then also this past draft they ended up getting Diggs, like Hodge just said, and so we don't really know a lot about both of them as far as when it comes to the pros. Like obviously we saw Santana play in college, we saw Diggs play in college, but we haven't seen either of them play any pro ball other than the preseason, and maybe even Santana a little bit in the back end of last season, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. I was gonna say I think he made his debut, had a cup of coffee. I don't remember if it was the last game or maybe the last 2 or 3 games. Excuse me. But yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting. I think to your point earlier, you brought up the Chicago Cougars, right? Mm-hmm. Like there's a completely new regime in Chicago now. Yes, I shouldn't say new regime, right? It's kind of like a new version of the old regime.
What's that? It's an influx of youth because obviously they got Hodge within the draft before the last, and then they brought in McCall. So
Jacob McCall, for those of you that don't know, Jacob McCall is now the quarterback for the Chicago Cougars. He was acquired via trade. The Cougars traded Geno Gannon to the London Black Knights as part of a larger package. So Geno Gannon is now in London for the Black Knights. Jacob McCall is in Chicago for the Cougars. So go ahead, Killian.
And then on top of that, now and with the Huskies, now we get to see Calvin Poole. So there's just a bunch of just young talent besides from maybe the River Hogs, young talent at quarterback that we will get to experience play each other throughout the season.
You know, it's interesting. I guess I hadn't thought about the dynamic of the entire division in terms of young quarterbacks. Mm-hmm. But you're kind of right. I mean, the River Hogs were, I want to say they made the playoffs last year, or they just missed. I think they made it.
I think they made it. They didn't win the first round. They didn't win.
Yeah, I want to say they got in. So, you might look at this and you might say, well, that's a division that the River Hogs could win. River Hogs don't win that division. You're talking about a young quarterback leading his team to the postseason. Basically. Calvin Poole is probably going to start in Toronto. Jacob McCall, I believe he's entering his third year in the league. So for the Cougars to win, McCall in his third year, that tracks. That's not wild. But there's a chance that we might see Calvin Poole in his first year as a starter, second year in the league, or we might see Javier Santana. Same thing. I just think it'll be interesting to see. But let's move on a little bit. Let's move on to the ARC South. And before we move on to the ARC South, I want to bring in my good buddy and one of your fellow captains. But only on the offensive side of the ball. El Capitan Anthony Fry. What's going on, buddy?
My goodness.
Oh, how we doing, everybody? Feels good to be back in here.
Oh my goodness.
How you been?
Good, man. Good. Moving and grooving. Ready to see some action again, boys.
Let's do it.
So you heard us talking about the ARC North, the ARC South, which is the division that we were in, right? It's and when I say that it's the division that we were in, what I really meant to say was it's the division that we own. Okay. And I just want everybody to know that we own the ARC South. And for the next 3 years, we will still own it. Because we won the division back to back to back. That's 3. For those of you keeping score, those of you counting at home, that's 3 years in a row. Hopefully now that I'm gone and we're out of the division, guys, maybe Frankie can finally get off the schneid. I'm sick and tired of listening to him complain about losing 16-13 because of a field goal at the buzzer or 17-14 on a field goal in overtime. You know, Frankie, you need to just be better. It's not my fault that your team is inferior, but I digress. Okay, so Fry, ARC South, we are now gone. The San Antonio Dreadnoughts are still there, and the Austin Armadillos are still there. But the Sacramento Miners are gone from the ARC South and are now in the ARC West. And the Oklahoma City Bisons are gone from the ARC South and are now in the ARC West. We can talk about the West later. Let's talk about the South right now. When you look at the new South Division that is replacing the Miners with the Orlando Sentinels and replacing the Bisons with the Houston Voyagers, Fry, what is the first thing that pops into your mind when you look at the new ARC South?
Well, the first thing that pops into my mind, to piggyback on what you said earlier, not only are we leaving a pretty big vacuum, we were picked to come in almost last in our division almost each one of those years. There was some podcast with some other coach with some bald coach, some coach with weird glasses, some coach with a list. I can remember what they had. Not a lot of intelligence. They said the Miners are terrible. What are they going to do? We're going to win again. We're going to win again. Everyone else is going to have to eat it. So Frankie now has a lot of chance. But the Voyagers stepping in is huge. That's a lot of impact that the Voyagers bring. Armadillos are going to continue to do what they do. They're going to be up and down and flounder. But I feel like the Voyagers bring a whole lot of heat. They produce every year, and they've got a lot of talent, well coached in the past, and I think the Voyagers are the ones that are going to give the Dreadnoughts a big run for their money. I think the Dreadnoughts are going to keep getting better. They've got Megatron 2.0 at the receiver. They got Perkins at running back, and they're just adding on the defense huge. So it didn't CC go there. So I mean, we're talking about a guy who loaded up on defense. So
yeah, I think to your point about the Voyagers, listen, I don't have to remind you guys certainly that the last meaningful game that any one of us watched or participated in was an absolute ass kicking at the hands of the Houston Voyagers in the playoffs last year. So if there's anybody out there who can speak to the talent level and the competitiveness of the Houston Voyagers and Coach Baker, it's me and it's you guys here. So absolutely 100% agree. I think that the Voyagers, it's kind of unfortunate because I feel for Frankie because we had that rivalry and it was great. And him and I had that back and forth and it was a good old friendly rivalry. It wasn't like we both understood what was going on. And now you just know that Frankie was like, oh, Sacramento's going to go to the West. Great. I'm not worried about the Armadillos. I'm not really worried about the Bisons. Well, now the Bisons are gone too, but they're replaced with the Sentinels. I'd say that's probably about a wash.
Yeah.
But he gets the Voyagers now instead of us. And I mean, it's certainly a wash at best for him, right? If not, it's now harder for him because he's got the Voyagers twice every single year.
They wanted to split 1-1 with us every year, and we had to take 2 against them just because when you're the bigger brother, you got to keep hitting the little brother. And so they were trying real hard to come after us and swapping us out with the Voyagers. I mean, it's even though they've gotten better now, they have even better competition with the Voyagers. So it's not a brighter light that we're gone. It's just the same fight for Frankie, just now with a new team and a new coach.
Yeah. All right. So that is the ARC North and the ARC South. Let's get into the ARC East here. So historically, it was the Orlando Sentinels, the Dublin Celtic Tigers, the London Bulldogs, and the London Black Knights. Now we have the what is it? I think it's still the Dublin Celtic Tigers.
I believe so.
I think there's still the Dublin Celtic Tigers, the London Black Knights, the London Bulldogs, and now the Brooklyn Bulls, right? Like all those cities are still the same, I believe.
Yep.
So the East doesn't see any change in city. They just see a little bit of realignment with the Brooklyn Bulls coming from the North now into the East. So Bane, I'll go back to you here. And maybe there's nothing aside from the fact that we talked about it a little bit earlier. Gino Gannon is now the quarterback for the London Black Knights. The London Bulldogs are the defending Relo Bowl champions. The Dublin Celtic Tigers are historically a juggernaut in the league. Outside of the things that I kind of just touched on there, is there anything that you see here in this ARC East?
Well, it's kind of hard to get away from the Bulldogs and the Celtic Tigers. It really is, because we don't know how the Brooklyn Bulls are going to do in this division with these two powerhouses. And then you look at the Black Knights, who are kind of like how you say the Dreadnoughts are our little brother. They're kind of the little brother to the Bulldogs and the little step brother of the Celtic Tigers. But then you get rid of McCall, you bring in the new quarterback. I don't know why I'm blanking on these names. You know, you just said it.
Gino Gannon?
Yeah, Gino Gannon. Yeah, Gino Gannon, yes. You bring him in, but that is a very
quarterback that played against us, and what happened? 47 interceptions and a benching, something like that.
Yes, but we're not going to talk about that. We're not going to talk about that. What we are going to talk about is how the Black Knights, who are a very young team, especially on that offense with that wide receiver hole with Amari and whatnot. And so you bring in an experienced quarterback. We'll see how they gel. The defense is still suspect. But other than that, I still say it's a race between the Bulldogs and the Celtic Tigers.
Fry, anything before we go to the West here? There's not really much. I mean, we kind of touched on a lot of that stuff, but anything that stands out to you in terms of this new ARC East?
No, I agree with everything Bane said. I'm curious to see what Gino Gannon can do with the weapons that they were able to bring into with the Black Knights before that trade happened with McCall. So I think it's going to be between the Bulldogs and Dublin, as we all expect.
Yeah, I think this could be low key one of those highly contested divisions. Like I could envision a scenario where the London Bulldogs aren't quite as dominant as they were, and I could also envision a scenario where Gino Gannon, takes the Black Knights a step in the right direction. The Celtic Tigers are still going to be good. And the Brooklyn Bulls were good last year. They had moments where they played really well, and then they just had games where they just kind of didn't show up. So, on paper, yes, it looks like it's probably the Bulldogs division to win, with the Celtic Tigers in second and the Black Knights in third, fighting with the Bulls for maybe third.
What are we looking at Bulldog quarterback room wise? I'm drawing a blank because it's been over a year since.
So Timmy Merritt. Who's there? He's the old hat in the room. And
Virginia cat.
What's that?
They drafted that West Virginia cat. I'm forgetting his name.
Yeah.
Same year.
Gaddy, Tajay, right?
Tajay Gaddy. Yep.
Tajay, yep. So Tajay's there. I don't think that. Okay, so the only scenario that I see Tajay getting some run this year is if what I just said a minute ago happens and this division becomes very contested, right? Because if the London Bulldogs are the London Bulldogs that we had last year and that we might expect this year, I don't envision Timmy Merritt getting replaced by Tajay Gaddy unless, of course, he gets hurt. So the only scenario where Tajay Gaddy's going to get some play is if suddenly something happens to the Bulldogs where, maybe they start the first 8 weeks of the year and they're 4-4, or God forbid they start under 500 and you're getting right around the trade deadline. And maybe there's another team out there that could use a veteran quarterback. And maybe the Bulldogs look at, adding Timmy Merritt to the trade block and giving Tajay the job. But other than that, I just don't see any other scenario where that would happen. All right, so that's the North, the South, and the East. Let's kick things over to the ARC West, which is the division that we now reside in. Historically, that's where we had the Houston Voyagers, the Portland Riverhogs, the Salt Lake City Pioneers, and the San Diego Red Dragons. Now, fast forward 365 days on the calendar, and we have the St. Louis Aviators. Again, if you remember, they were the Columbus Aviators when they were in the North. Now they are the St. Louis Aviators in the West. The Oklahoma City Bisons, they remain in OKC. And the San Diego Red Dragons, they remain there as well. And then obviously here we stroll into town looking to dominate yet another division in the ARC. So off the top of my head, guys, I look at this, and I said this earlier at the Open, I'm glad that we still keep the rivalry with the Bisons. I think for a couple reasons. One, I think we're better than them, so I think it's a great opportunity for 2 wins every year. But also, I like the rivalry between the Torres family, right? Like you've got Joseph Torres, who's the quarterback of the Bisons, and we've got Jakari Torres, who's a running back in our room.
Yep.
So I like that. And then I just also like, I said this earlier, I like Mac. I think he's a good dude. And I think, with him trying to step up and do more with that squad, I think that's good for him. And then also we have the relationship between Mac and EA on our team. I believe guys are going to have, are they cousins? Are they
They're brothers?
Brothers. Okay. So we've got a lot of like family ties here between the Miners and the Bisons. So I can't imagine that was something that Smitty thought about. But I do appreciate the fact that it worked out that way. And then now, obviously, the Aviators and the Red Dragons are teams that we're not used to facing multiple times a year, but we will get to do so this year. So the Aviators, one good thing, I will throw this out there before I kick it over to you, Fry, and get your thoughts on this. But the nice thing about the Aviators is that just like Geno Gannon leaving the Cougars to go to the Black Knights, Marquise Washington is now no longer the quarterback for the Aviators. Marquise Washington, now he's not even in the ARC anymore. He's now the quarterback for the Desperados, which are no longer in Austin anymore. We'll get into where the Austin Desperados relocated to a little bit, but now we have the Aviators and they are without Marquise Washington, which I would imagine is going to be good news for us So Fry, to you, the ARC West, the way it looks now, our new division that we will try to conquer this year. What say you on this?
Well, let's start off. I feel like I knew about that Marquise Washington move, but I feel like I forgot, and I'm hearing it all over again. So I'm super excited all over again with this idea that we don't have Marquise Washington to game plan against. We only have to stop Kingston Kenny, 2K.
Right.
Running the ball.
So you mean to tell me because they don't have Marquise Washington, they're not going to throw it as much? So now they're just going to give it to Kingston Kenny more often? Great.
I don't know. What are we going to do? Maybe they'll put Corey Polly in. I think he was their backup. We'll see. That Michigan guy can step in and make some plays. But the Aviators are still a tough team. They still have a good defense. They still have weapons on offense. Whoever they have at quarterback right now, it's not going to be a scrub. I mean, they wouldn't have made the move if they wouldn't have had something there valid to replace them. So we're going to have to see what happens with that team. It's going to be up in the air without Marquise Washington. They're not going to be what they were entirely, but they're also not going to be garbage. There's going to be a very good team. They've been well coached for years. We still have the Bisons, which is nice. It's always good to have rivalries. It's also always good to have 2 penciled in wins on your schedule, especially when you got someone like Torres just handing us the ball on defense most of the time. It's like, oh, did you want this guy? Here you go. Hand right over. Last chance for the interception most of the time. But I'm feeling good about the Bisons. And then we have the Red Dragons with Savoy still at the helm. And
DJ Scott.
What's that?
And DJ Scott.
Yeah. So that's still a nightmare to deal with. I feel like we've got the upper hand on the Bisons and the Aviators, and I feel like the Red Dragons are going to be where we're going to have to really battle. I mean, as much as I love to be overly confident, they're still the Red Dragons, and so we still have to bring everything at them. And we wouldn't play to we lost to them last time, so it feels like it's a get back for us, just like when we won the get back game against London, who kind of gave us a rough loss last season. All in all, I feel good about our chances in the division, and I think we go 1-1 with the Red Dragons, and we go 2-0 against the others. I think that puts us in a good spot to stay near the top of our division.
Yeah, I would agree. I don't think that we necessarily moved into a more difficult division. But that said, I don't feel like it's any easier for us to potentially win this division, right? Like, obviously you said it, Fry, the Bisons are still there. That's the same. Historically, we've done well against them. And so we're basically replacing 2 games a year with the Dreadnoughts for 2 games a year with the Red Dragons. And I bet you if the Red Dragons played the Dreadnoughts 100 times, they'd probably go 50-50, right? Like, it'd be pretty close. Both those teams are good. So that's kind of a wash on our end. And then obviously, if you look at the Aviators taking over for the Armadillos, I would have said last year that the Aviators were a far better team than the Armadillos. However, now with the loss of Marquise Washington, I don't know what the Aviators are going to look like. I worry about the age of some of their veteran players, some of the best players on that team. And so they might take a significant step back.
To add on that, I believe they also lost their top corner as well in free agency to the Sentinels.
Was that Mayberry?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay. So, and again, I think that was another old head, right? So some of the older guys regressing and or moving on in free agency, plus the inability to, come to terms and have the financial flexibility to re-sign Marquise Washington. We don't know what this Aviators team is going to look like. And so that could be a benefit for us there as well. So, all right. So that is the ARC, right? Let's go ahead and take a look at the NRC and what the new realignment looks like. But before we do so, I'm going to go out to the comments here and see if I see anything. Yeah, Hodge is right. When you said they lost their best corner, Bane, I was like, I don't think they lost their best corner. I think they lost
one of the 2.
They had, I think, 3 really good corners. But yeah, the King Armstrong is certainly going to step in, but the loss of Mayberry will hurt. What else do we got? Rohan, good to see you, buddy. Rohan said, what do you say here, Rohan? All these relocations got my head spinning. Yeah, I think that it's important, right? Like I know I teased this a couple of weeks ago when I said Miners Live is coming back on January 7th, and it just so happened to work out where the RFL season was starting on the following Monday. I didn't know that at the time. But what I do know is that it's been a year now, and there's been a lot of things that have happened, and add into the fact that a lot of things have happened with the fact that it's just been a while. Like people forget,
Yes.
right? Like a lot of people took the year off. A lot of people took basically the year off. I know you college kids out there, everyone that was a part of CS6 and CS5, I think it was. I know you guys are like, what are you talking about? Listen, a lot of the coaches took the year off, right? I hated it when it happened, but after like the 4 or 5 month mark, I felt pretty good. It was nice. It was a nice little break. I felt like it was go, go, go. And, you know, I know for a fact, Bane, all the work that we went through behind the scenes leading up to the draft, like there was burnout. There was burnout in effect.
Major burnout.
So I get it. And so it was kind of a nice little break. And so I thought it was important to kind of go back and remind people as we get into this, because the worst thing that's going to happen is you're going to, you know, you start watching a game and you realize, wait, this team's not even, this isn't the Sacramento Condors, the San Jose Condors. What the heck happened? When did that happen? So I thought it'd be important to kind of go over this realignment a little bit and kind of give you guys a refresher on where we stand, where these other teams are. And so without any further ado, let's go over into the NRC, right? So we had the NRC North. The NRC North was the Chicago Tigers, the Toronto Thunderbirds, the Brooklyn Barons, and the Columbus Explorers. Now, the Barons have relocated to, I believe they're just called the New York Barons. Yep. So I think they still play in Brooklyn, or they play somewhere in New York. The Columbus Explorers are still in Columbus. And then the Thunderbirds are gone from the north, and they're now in the south. And the Tigers are gone from the north, and they're now in the south. And they both have new cities that they call home. So let's stick with the north. And now in the new NRC North, we have what used to be the Houston Gunners are now the Baltimore Gunners. The Columbus Explorers are still there. The Brooklyn Barons became the New York Barons. And now it's great out there. And I'm sorry, I apologize, guys. It is the Louisville Lumberjacks. So this one is kind of cool because for those of you that have watched the RFL for, several years now, the Louisville Lumberjacks are
brand spanking new.
Completely new, like completely different. They've never been in the league. We've never had the Lumberjacks. And so the Lumberjacks enter the league. They will play in Louisville. And so the Louisville Lumberjacks, the Baltimore Gunners, the New York Barons, and the Columbus Explorers. Bane, what do you got here on this NRC North?
Well, with the Thunderbirds going out of town and the Gunners having the season that they did last season, and we don't know how they're going to respond, I think this may just be the Explorers division again. Obviously, like I said, the Gunners need to bounce back from that season that they had that wasn't up to par. You have the Barons, who don't have their coach anymore. He's now coaching the Armadillos, and we got to think about what they'll end up doing. And then you have a brand new team in the Lumberjacks, who have a rookie quarterback, and who's the franchise of their offense, and the future of their defense that they got in Garrett Evans as well, if I'm not mistaken. So I just, until these other teams prove that they can do it and they can get better, it's still the Explorers division with Daryl Johns, and just that, in my opinion, that has always been the most balanced team in the league. The Explorers, from top to bottom, in my opinion, are the most balanced team in the league, and they've proved it multiple times. Last year was kind of a fever dream, maybe. We gotta see how they respond, but it's the division or bust for them, in my opinion.
Yeah, so you have to remember back not that long ago, the Columbus Explorers went undefeated, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like completely undefeated, pulled some 1972's Miami Dolphins type stuff, right? So while I don't expect that to happen this year, especially now that you have 5 games that are not guaranteed wins anymore, you now have to earn those 5 wins. I do think that they are the class of that division. I do think that the Gunners had a nice little run for a couple years, but I don't see much out of them. I think that the Barons are fighting for the number 1 pick in the draft at this point. Like they might, the Barons might be on the clock right now. And then the Louisville Lumberjacks, you don't know.
Don't know anything.
I forget now. I don't think you mentioned this. The Lumberjacks replaced the Lancers. That's what it was. The Oklahoma City Lancers. So for those of you that are tuning in, expecting us to talk about the Oklahoma City Lancers in the next upcoming segment, I would apologize. I hope that you didn't sit around here for the last 45 minutes waiting for a bunch of Lancers conversation.
There's a whole lot of Lancers fans out there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's some. I do hope that you can. I hope that you can find it in your hearts to forgive me.
Doo-doo brown uniforms. Nobody cares.
But know that it's not my fault that the Lancers are not here anymore. I will tell you, the Lancers. I didn't hate the Lancers uniforms, Fry. But I do think that the Lumberjacks uniforms are going to grow on a lot of people. I think when you guys see the Lumberjacks play, it's going to take you maybe 1 to 3 games at the most before you start thinking about, yeah, these uniforms are pretty hot.
The plaid does pop.
Yeah, the helmet for sure. If you haven't seen the helmet concept, that's pretty cool. And our rookie running back, look at the rookie in the chat, Steve Washington, calling us out because we're not pronouncing Louisville appropriately. For those of you that live in Kentucky and you live near that region where there is a big university that's not in Lexington, the other big university that is red instead of blue, you don't call it Louisville. You don't call it Louisville. You call it Louisville.
Yeah.
So thank you, Steve Washington.
I don't even care either way. That's a terrible town, not in a good state. I don't even care a little bit. Louisville, Louisville, however you have to pronounce it. Last in the division. We can move on.
Fry, why are you? Why is Fry always so bitter?
I'm super excited. What it is, I'm super excited. Hey, real quick before we get on weird tangents about my attitude. Hey, with the Narc North. I want to say that there was a reason Bill has 0 hair on his head because he used to have to play the T-Birds twice and then hope to get past them in the playoffs. And he did that, and he still went undefeated. Pretty awesome. But that's the last nice thing I'll say about Bill and his weird 3-4-34 combination defense. I think the Gunners aren't going to really give much of a competition the way the T-Birds did. I think they're going to step out of a division that the Steamers were poised to run over. And now with all this realignment, the Barons are already on the clock. The Gunners are on their way down, and we'll see what Bill can continue to do. Maybe some hair will grow back now that the T-Birds are only 1 game in his future.
Bill's going to have to move down to his favorite place on earth here, where I currently call home in Clearwater, and just hope that, maybe the stress levels will come down. If the stress level isn't coming down because he doesn't have to play the Tigers and he doesn't have to play the Thunderbirds 4 times a year, come on down, Bill. Come on down to Clearwater. I would love to, Fry. I really want to move on from the NRC North, but I feel like at this point the chat is just blowing up with the city that the Lumberjacks call home. So if I go out here real quick, of all the comments in here, I will say my favorite one is Darius Hodge here. Bar Louie is awesome. Yes, for those of you that don't know, Bar Louie is actually awesome. So that's probably the only time this year that myself and Darius Hodge will agree on anything. But I digress. I joke. I kid. Poopyville is not one that I had heard of.
Hola, Bill.
But yeah, I didn't think that we would be talking about poop in the chat today. Scoopaville, Scoopaville. I'm curious though. I guess we're gonna have to ask here. Bane, unless you know what, Fry, you probably know the answer to this question.
I don't, I'll pretend I do.
Yeah, you absolutely know the answer to this question. What is the difference between Poopyville and Dookieville?
They're the same. They're both not in Texas, so they don't count.
Oh, okay. All right.
Oh my goodness.
I suppose if you're going to have a Poopyville and then a Dookieville, you're probably losing a couple pounds. So now you can call yourself Skinnyville? That seems
about right.
Is that what's happening? Right. Okay. All right. We got to move on.
It's a whole bathroom break at this point.
Okay. All right. Jeez. Okay. We found out.
Maybe Dookieville was McCall's career with the Black Knights, and maybe Poopyville is going to be his career with the Cougars.
I'm sorry. Boy.
Love all you guys.
This is the most attention that a rookie running back has ever gotten from his hometown city in the history of the RFL. I promise you that. So shout out to you, Steve Washington. This is what you came for. You said that you were from Louisville. You said represent, and here we are representing, even if the general manager of the Chicago Cougars seems to think that your city is a watery, if not solid state of feces.
Yeah.
And for those of you who don't remember who our running back Steve Washington is that we drafted, he is who Pecan called.
Okay, all right. Let's not get back into that. We don't need.
Stop being so bitter.
We don't need to hear that again.
I'm going to put the mute button on. I think for the first time in the history of Miners Live, I'm going to start utilizing the mute button this year. All right, so let's move on. Let's go to the NRC South. At this point, we're kind of touching up on teams that we may have already mentioned, but there's a couple teams in this division here that we had not even mentioned their name yet. So the old NRC South was the Orlando Wizards, the Oklahoma City Lancers, the Austin Desperados, and the Mexico City Diablos. That was the NRC South. Now the NRC South is the Tigers, which have been relocated from Chicago to Tampa Bay. So we now have the Tampa Bay Tigers, and then the Thunderbirds, which were relocated from Toronto, are now the Atlanta Thunderbirds. So we have the Tampa Bay Tigers, the Atlanta Thunderbirds. We still have the Mexico City Diablos. And then instead of the Austin Desperados, we now have the Dallas Desperados. And that is your NRC South. I know, Fry, you talked about the Thunderbirds earlier when you were talking about the Explorers and how they're grateful that they don't have to play them twice a year. I brought up the Tigers. I think that's a team that's on the come up.
Very much.
I think that Kai Cash is doing nice things there. I think that Reese Goodell, the greatest thing that ever happened to the Tigers organization was moving Reese Goodell from linebacker to safety. I will be the first person to tell you that I tried for 6 months to swing a trade for Reese Goodell. And I couldn't make it work. And he ended up being moved from linebacker to safety, which for us, he wasn't going to be a starting safety, but I was going to have him as that kind of like sub linebacker, safety linebacker combo. And now he's one of the best safeties, probably a top 10, certainly top 12 safety in the league. He was awesome last year for the Tigers. So, Bane, to you first, because I know Fry is busy trying to come up with some insult that he can throw out to some other team out there. The Tigers, the Thunderbirds, the Desperados, and the Diablos, the new NRC South. What do you got here?
Well, here's the thing. The T-Birds are obviously the best team in this division on paper and on the field, most likely. Desperados, they have a tremendous running back in the backfield. Other than that, I think they have to prove more, if anything. Tigers, Lord knows what the future holds for them, especially in the beginning of the season. And then you have the Diablos, who I actually agree. I think it's what Hodge said earlier. The Diablos will be the T-Birds competition. I fully believe, I fully agree with that. Especially, I believe to get their coach back, if I'm not mistaken. After his hiatus, like leaving and now coming back. But at the end of the day, yeah, Forbes is back. Yep. The T-Birds are the ones to beat. It's, even though they're in a new division, it is most likely going to be their division to lose. Unless the Diablos has something to say about it. And yeah, it's just another thing where it's one team at the top and then maybe another team not too far back, but then the others are looking up.
Yeah. So the other thing, and we talked about this, and Coach Roby just brought it up in the chat as well. Earlier, when we talked about Marquise Washington leaving the Aviators, he went to the Desperados.
That's right.
So, I know that on paper we can look at this and we can say the Tigers are a good team. They played really well last year. They should have made the playoffs. I think they just barely missed the playoffs. And I want to say it was because of a tie break. It was based off like strength of schedule or something that they missed the playoffs. But again, they missed the playoffs because they were in a division with the Explorers and the Thunderbirds. If the Chicago Tigers last year had been in any other division in the RFL, they would have made the playoffs. So they were the unfortunate team of the entire league last year, and they missed out. Now, Marquise Washington being in Dallas with the Desperados and Tavion Hall, that is a very, very nice little quarterback running back combo. Is it enough to get past Atlanta? I don't know. Because what I can tell you is that RC3, Roosevelt Colvin, looks like Lamar Jackson in the game. Like, it is not going to be a surprise to see him rush for 750 yards this season. Like, I for one, I don't know what's that. The T-Birds. Yeah. I don't know what I would put the over under on in terms of RC3's rushing yards, but I wouldn't be surprised if he went over 700. I also wouldn't be surprised if he led the league. And so, if you don't have a way to stop him, it can be dangerous. And again, there are some formidable teams in that NRC South. But I think it's going to be tough to stop the Thunderbirds.
Yeah, and like Mix is saying in the chat, Hall, consistent win or lose. Marquise, consistent win or lose. Crazy thing about Marquise Washington is he goes from Kingston Kenny to Tevion Hall. What do you even have to say about that? It's just going from one monster running back to another. And it's going to be crazy.
Yeah, forget about the $300 million contract that he signed.
Yeah, but also we got to think that the Desperados defense, we got to see what they can do. I mean, we don't know how good they're going to be and whatnot. They've been building with some young pieces, but like I said, the only real notable players on that team right now, off the top of my head, are Tevion and Marquise. If I'm forgetting someone, I apologize, but those are definitely the two top ones that you got to look out for on that team.
All right, so that's the NRC South. We got two more divisions here. We'll try to roll through these pretty quick so we can move on. The NRC East, which not a lot changing here, just one team different. So the Memphis Steamers are still there. The Dublin Shamrocks have been relocated, and they are now in Boston, a city that I know far too well. So the Dublin Shamrocks are now the Boston Shamrocks. The London Monarchs are now the New England Monarchs. And again, an area of the country that I know far too well. And the Houston Gunners, which used to be in the NRC East, are now gone. As we mentioned earlier, they're in Baltimore in the north. And now the fourth team that is in the NRC East is the DC Marshals. So this is another one that the Marshals were in San Antonio years ago. We had the San Antonio Marshals. They had to take a year or two hiatus, but now they are back. So the DC Marshals, the Boston Shamrocks, the New England Monarchs, and the Memphis Steamers are your four teams in the NRC East. I guess for me, guys, I just kind of love the fact that we've got the Marshals back. I think that was one team that everybody was kind of sad to see go, right? Like the Miners took over for the Conquistadors. I don't think anyone was really complaining about the Conquistadors being gone at the hands of the Miners. What's that?
Nobody could spell Conquistadors. We weren't worried.
No, if the only thing worse than being the Conquistadors
was being a Mountie.
Is if you were from Albuquerque. if you were the Albuquerque Conquistadors,
that's too many Q's.
That's just way too difficult to spell. I'm sweating actually just thinking about it. So the New England Monarchs, the Boston Shamrocks, I think it's cool. Do I think that there needs to be two teams in that region? Maybe not. But I do appreciate the fact that we don't have three London teams anymore. And then the Memphis Steamers, love them or hate them. I know that you
Hodge wants to spell out Conquistadors on his phone with spell check and autocorrect and act all proud.
What'd you do?
Hodge spelling Conquistadors with his phone as if it's not on autocorrect.
Oh,
I see through you, Hodge. We can have an RFL spelling bee after this. We can see where everyone's at.
Oh my goodness.
All right, so the Memphis Steamers consistently finish number one, even though they will always be number two. What do you guys think here? I guess, Fry, will start with you, the NRC East division.
Yeah, I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings, but it's the Steamers division to lose. They've just played too well.
Did you just say you don't want to hurt anyone's feelings?
Yeah, at this point, I'm gonna be real polite and fair with this because I like a lot of the people here. The Steamers, they're the Steamers. They were a great team and they got better last year. They were scary good last year, and they're only going to continue to be. I hate to see the Wizards branding leave. I thought they had a cool thing going, but they're replaced with the Marshals, and it's the same good team, same guys on that team. Was it Lito and Leo, Hodge? 1.0 is still out there. I feel like we all know what it is. Everyone else is going to do their best to fight for second, maybe squeak out a wild card win if some of these other divisions are still competitive. They bounce losses around, but right now, for the time being, this is the Steamers division.
Bane, you got anything on any on one of these teams here?
I mean, I gotta agree. Like it really is the Steamers division to lose. I fully expect them to fully dominate. The Marshals, they are a good team. Don't get me wrong, they are a good team. They have really good pieces. Lido, I forget who y'all got as your running mate on the quarterbacks. I forget who's
Leo Moon.
No, not Leo Moon. He's the quarterback. I mean the corner.
Defensive.
Yeah, defensive corner that they drafted, I believe was either last year. Joel Howard. Yes, Joel Howard, who they brought in to be the partner in crime to Lido, which could definitely bolster their defense. But we still got to see what they can do. We know what the Steamers can do.
I forgot about that. That's a good point. Do you have, Bane, I know that we talked about it ad nauseum, and I meant to try to pull it up for the show tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have that sheet and like that that database that we were working on for the draft? I forgot about Joel Howard going to the Wizards.
Yeah, that's a good pickup for them.
Possibly.
So Lido Loso and Joel Howard, like I don't want to play them. Now, obviously, Joel Howard might take a couple years to be the Joel Howard that we saw at Ohio State, but for sure, I don't want to face these guys.
These guys. One of the things you can say about the locker room there is these are dudes that get guys committed and keep them invested. I got a lot of respect for that, and so you're going to have a lot of growth.
For sure. All right, so that's the NRC East. Let's move it over to the NRC West. And now here's a division that doesn't change. Everything is the same in terms of the teams. The only thing that changes here is we have one of the teams relocated to a new city, right? So we have the Portland Snowhawks. We have the Salt Lake City Elks. We have the Los Angeles Crusaders, which actually I believe were the San Diego Crusaders. Now they're the Los Angeles Crusaders. And the Sacramento Condors are now the San Jose Condors. So basically the Crusaders are the RFL's version of the Chargers in the NFL, if you will. Moving from San Diego to LA.
I mean, they should be better than they are, and they don't really live up to the hype.
I would agree with that. Historically, I would have said it's because I thought the division was very good. But I don't know if I feel that way anymore. I think that when I look at the NRC West, right? Like, okay, I wasn't planning on doing this, but real quick off the top of my head, if I'm looking at all of these divisions, when I look at the NRC West, I think that it is the weakest division in the league. And basically when I say that, what I mean when I say that and how I'm judging it is I don't think there's another division in the league. Whoever you think the best team is in the NRC West, take your pick. I don't care. Fry, who do you think, just real quick, one word answer. Who do you think the best team is in the NRC West?
Crusaders.
Okay. I don't think that the Crusaders would win any division outside of that one.
No, they're not.
Bane, who do you think the best team is in the NRC West?
I'd say the Snowhawks.
Okay. I don't think that the Snowhawks would win any other division outside of the one that they're currently in. I think that if you look at the other divisions in the league, And I mean, you can look at the NRC East, easily the Steamers, the NRC South, the Thunderbirds, the Desperados, possibly the Tigers, the NRC North, the Explorers, maybe even the Gunners. If you put the Gunners in the NRC West, they might win it. If you go to the ARC and you look at the ARC South, the Voyagers, the Dreadnoughts, they probably win the NRC West. You've got in the North, maybe the Huskies take a step back because they're starting Calvin Poole and it's his first year as a starter. Maybe the Cougars take a step back because they're starting McCall and they're not starting Gino Gannon. So maybe, I guess if you were to look at any other division, it's probably the ARC North. I think maybe if you took the Snowhawks or you took the Crusaders and you flipped them with a couple teams, maybe they could get into the playoffs if they were in the ARC North. But I certainly don't see it in the South with us. I think that we're a better team than all four of those. And I think that the Red Dragons are probably a better team, if not on par with all four of those.
I see a lot of Snowhawk love in the chat, and cool, rightfully so. They definitely have a good team. I personally was one of the ones that helped build the Crusaders the last season we were about to play, and I got a good look at their roster, and their roster's insane. Their offense is so overpowered, and they really aren't stepping up. We'll see what happens. We'll break that fourth wall. New Madden, new gameplay. We'll see. It's offensive specialty, and that's what the Crusaders have. The Snowhawks have a good roster. I mean, but their quarterback threw 35 interceptions last season or something like that. Gucci, whatever his name was. I think they're good. I think they've got a lot of players we know, but I don't think that they're going to really step outside. And we'll see. We'll see what happens with a change at the helm for the Snowhawks. Could be a big difference, or it could not do anything. We could just see the roster be that same roster. But I fully believe that if you set them up on paper and you line them up, you're going to have the Crusaders winning the majority of the games. But it's not going to be blowouts. Like, this is going to be everybody goes 1-1, and we have to go to a third or fourth different tiebreaker. Who's got the most rushing yards per carry, or some weird tie-breaking rule, because they're all such a boring bland a bunch of teams.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing here is if you are the wild card team out of the NRC, you are hoping that you play the division winner of the NRC West, right? Because to your point, it's probably going to be the Snowhawks or the Crusaders. And if whoever wins that division is going to get a home game, but chances are there's going to be a wild card team in the NRC that is actually better than that team. They're kind of like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers of the NFL this year, right? Like, they're playing a home game, but they're playing a home game against a team that has a much better record than them. You look at like the Minnesota Vikings, for example, they're 14-3 and they're playing on the road.
Yeah. I hope a team steps up in that division and wows us all and runs over everybody. I don't really see it happening. I think they're all kind of in that same range right now, but I mean, I'd love to see someone do that. Yeah.
So to my point here, like, that NRC 5 seed is going to be grinning ear to ear. That's my point. Like, I would imagine, again, I could be completely wrong, but I would imagine that the division winner in the NRC West is probably the 4 seed. And I think if you are the 5 seed in the NRC, you're not scared about going on the road and playing the Snowhawks. Now, I did see Mick said it earlier in the chat, talking about the Snowhawks and their overalls, and they've got like 4 or 5 guys that are a 90 overall. That's great. But there's a couple things that you guys, for those of you that aren't super familiar with the league, obviously Mix is, myself, a lot of you guys are. There's some changes to the way that the game's going to play this year, in that we took the abilities off. So if you have X Factor, whatever those abilities are, they're not going to play out in the game. So gone are the days of a quarterback having Deadeye and, closer, and simply being in the zone. And every time his team gets the ball down by 3 late in the fourth quarter, it's an automatic come from behind win. Like, because those things were happening, right? Yeah. Like, I'm not saying something outlandish here, I remember games where we were up 10 points in the fourth quarter and we were going against an X factor quarterback, Glenn Hay, not to mention any names, and then we end up losing the game. So
Madden was real bad.
Those days are gone, those days are gone. So Mitch brought up the point. They've got a bunch of guys that are over 90. Yes. So to kind of I guess this is twofold. One, to kind of throw some water on his point. I don't think that those overalls are going to mean as much necessarily because the abilities are toned down and the sliders and settings are a little bit different this year. So I don't think that that's going to mean necessarily as much. However, to kind of agree with him on another part that he brought up, they no longer have a user head coach. And say what you will, I'm going to be probably way more polite than Fry is going to be about this, but they're probably going to be a better team this year because they don't have the coach in place potentially holding them back. I feel like I don't think this is up for debate. I think that more often than not, that team was held back by their coach as opposed to being elevated because their coach, right? I think when you look at our team, not to kind of toot my own horn here, but I feel like, Fry, you mentioned this at the beginning of the show. For the past 3 years, we have been looked at as the second best team in our own division.
Yeah,
there was not a single year that we were picked to win. Everybody has said, "Oh, the Miners are a good team, but they're not going to win the division and whatever." And so I feel like the Miners, we are an example of kind of a team that if you get the right foundation, you get the right guys, you get the right general manager, you can elevate a team. And I feel like the Snowhawks were the absolute inverse of what we were. Whatever I may have done to help make a mediocre team a really, really good team, I feel like the Snowhawks were kind of a really, really good team that is now just kind of a mediocre team.
Yeah. Yeah. So. To tag on that point, though, I did see the text messages where Frankie offered Smitty $100 to move us out of the division, so it makes a lot more sense now.
I don't know. Yeah, well, did Smitty give him his money back after he told him he was putting the Voyagers there?
Nah, you know how Smitty is. He walked right out with it.
Smitty's like, nah, man, thanks for that hundo.
Yeah, sucks to suck, nerd. So, in regards to the Snowhawks, yeah, I feel like they're. I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna do this polite and real.
Keep it PG.
I think their coach,
Keep it PG.
Please.
I think their coach tried to get too clever and tried to reinvent the wheel too many times.
Brian, what do we got to do to get you on a real camera? Can you turn that?
Sorry.
Can you turn that? How about, hey, Fry, how about I take your camera and I turn that sumbit sideways and I stick it straight up?
Okay, all right. Now we're not being PG.
I thought I was the one.
We gotta simmer it down a little.
I mean, come on.
I broke my laptop, so this is what we're dealing with. This is the future. Right. I gotta use my phone. But no, I feel like the Snowhawks. I feel like their coach kind of got maybe a little too clever. Maybe tried to do too many things. You can see it in his draft. He had like the most 6th and 7th round draft picks ever. Searching for the diamond in the rough, and meanwhile, he's got a 90+ quarterback throwing multiple interceptions a game. Not quite connecting all the dots on offense and defense, and their roster definitely is a good one. So we'll see what happens now with Smitty at the helm, and what the team does from that point. I think they're a good team. I think they got a lot of talented guys. I think they got a lot of league first dudes. I think they got. They may be close to us as far as when you look at locker room size with the most Semitic players. I know we've got a ton, and I think they're close to it. So if they've got guys that will buy in and opt in like we've done in our locker room, then they can have a potential for a lot of success. But if they don't, then they continue to be the inverse of us. We've had success. We've been successful. And, we're going to continue to do that. So we'll see where they go. We'll put it up in the air again. I I just favor the Crusaders, and we'll see what happens.
I see what
So
you did there.
one thing that I did not realize, guys, and I am sorry, I did not realize that I was going to get this far into the first episode of Miners Live this year and realize that I was so absolutely blinded and dumb to the fact that the Steamers played Ohio State. I didn't realize that the Steamers played Ohio State last year. When did the Steamers become a college team? I had no idea that. Like, I thought the Steamers were, I thought they were good. I didn't know that they were relegated. Is this like European football? The Steamers have been relegated to college? Because otherwise I don't understand Pecan's point. What is Pecan talking about? What is Pecan talking about?
He doesn't know.
He acts like he's on the Snowhawks.
I mean... All
right. That's it. That's
goodness.
All right, Pecan. Yeah. I had to.
Technically,
sometimes you make
roster.
It too easy.
I mean, look, if the Snowhawks make a run and get a title, I mean, the Water Boys gonna get a ring, so you're gonna be all right, Pecan. They're not gonna forget about you.
Oh, Hodge, I know that his wide receiver is on the Snowhawks. It was a joke because he's like 19th on the depth chart.
Oh my!
You know, when you have to explain. Okay, guys, listen.
Message.
Hodge, you don't have an excuse because you've been here long enough to know this. But for those of you that are new and for those of you that don't know me well enough, you just have to understand that you're going to hear some stuff. Sometimes you can try to correct me and you will be right. And maybe I didn't know and maybe I got it wrong. But more often than not, when I say things, if your initial reaction is to get in the comment and write, you're wrong, chances are I'm not wrong. Chances are you, my friend, completely missed the joke. Okay? I know that Pecan is on the Snowhawks. It wasn't a joke. It wasn't a joke about me being an idiot, not knowing that Pecan is on the Snowhawks. But when you look at the depth chart, and I feel bad, I don't know which one of you guys built the Snowhawks. I know that Bain, you built some teams. McCain built some teams. I know Amari built some. I feel bad for whoever had to build the Snowhawks because it must have taken a week and a half to go through 19 wide receivers just so that you could finally get the Pecan.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I didn't know you could have Smitty. How come you're allowed to have that many wide receivers? I don't understand.
Normally they'd be cut, but
yeah.
Program, so Smitty kept him on at 19th. He might make 18th. He might have a good week in practice. I'm rooting for you, Pecan. How do we say it? Pecan? What are we talking about?
What Smitty talk? Now Smitty doesn't even get the joke.
Oh, Smitty. It's because Pecan's from Ohio State, and Ohio State is.
Oh gosh, geez. You guys are killing me. I know that it's been a while, but I thought that maybe, just maybe, you would fall back into the humility and the humor that is Miners Live. Yes, we know that Pecan, I joke with you, Pecan. For those of you that don't know, Pecan probably does more, just as much, if not more, than any other user submitted player for this league. So as much as I joke, he is a great contributor to the league, and he should be recognized for that, and he should get his due for that. However, that doesn't mean that I'm not going to take every opportunity I can, again, when I can, right? Like, I don't go out of my way to throw people under the bus or make people the butt of a joke. But if the opportunity arises and it is presented, I will do so. And yes, I joke. Pecan is not actually 19th on the depth chart. I was joking. He was the butt of that joke. I have been fact checked. Hopefully you guys don't cancel me. If you do, I appreciate the run. Thank you very much. I think Fry and Bane can take over from here. If I do, in fact, get canceled for calling Pecan the 19th wide receiver, even though he is apparently 4th on the depth chart. And I mean, if he's 4th on the depth chart, then they must have lost like 4 guys in free agency. Someone's got to go check that. If he's 4th on the depth chart, they can't win the division. Okay. All right. I'm done. Shout out Pecan for being such a good sport. But all right, that's it. That's the end of the conversation around the RFL realignment. The season kicks off on Monday. We talked about it at the outset. So the first game of the season, the annual RFL Kickoff Classic. Smitty, I don't know if you're aware of this, but that's what it's now called. I have officially dubbed the first game of the year the RFL Kickoff Classic. I expect $30 monthly buy-in instead of $50 monthly for the rights to use that. After all, you did steal the RFL Live from Miners Live. So at this point, I feel like that's a worthy 20% discount.
Royalties is crazy.
That's actually 40% discount. I good math. But anyway, the RFL alignment, we went over it. We touched on it. We're an hour and a half in here. I don't really want to go over the realignment anymore. What I do want to get into is some news about our squad. And we did talk about some of the league transactions. We talked about Jacob McCall, who's now the quarterback of the Chicago Cougars. We talked about Geno Gannon, who's now the quarterback of the London Black Knights. And we talked about Marquise Washington, who is now the quarterback of the Dallas Desperados. We even talked about Javier Santana, who I believe is the starting quarterback for the Pittsburgh Pioneers, not the Salt Lake City Pioneers, the Pittsburgh Pioneers. But one thing that we did not talk about is the starting quarterback for the Louisville Lumberjacks, which again is a team that is completely new to the league. And remember, they drafted Jordan Granger this past draft. So I will be honest with you. If somebody wants to fact check this, go ahead. Cancel culture is real. There's 28 of you out there watching right now. Somebody's going to fact check. Someone's going to cancel me. I think that it's conceivable for Jordan Granger to get some run.
Didn't he play at that garbage Texas school?
He did. He played at Texas and then he went to Baylor. He came over to Baylor.
Oh, Fry. You know what, Fry? I laughed not because you're right. I laughed because I didn't recognize you with your camera turned right side up.
Turn this something sideways, right?
Yeah, something. No, we're not going that view. That was weird.
Oh no.
All right, where are we going? No, we're going back here.
Yeah, you can be the larger than life.
All right, so real quick, back out to the chats real quick. If there's any questions out there, any comments that I see that I really like, let's see.
Dundee.
Okay, this one's good. I forget, guys. You're going to have to help me out here. I don't remember who this is. Chosen. I don't remember who that is.
You don't? Really?
If you tell me, I'll be like, oh, okay, yeah, now I remember. Again, I took a year off. Many of you guys didn't take a year off. I legit unplugged. I don't know what I'm going to do come draft season because I don't know any of these guys. I legit unplugged for a year and like used it to reset my life and my well-being after getting absolutely annihilated at the hands of the Voyagers in the first round of the playoffs, which has happened 3 years in a row. Okay? So I don't remember who Chosen is, but I do appreciate the comment. Drake and Kendrick RFL podcast version is crazy. Well done, Chosen. Tell me who your player is, and I won't forget.
Insider.
moving forward? Oh, it's the insider. All right, that's why. Because I'm trying to think of a player, and it's not a player. See,
Thank you,
Bane,
chat,
don't
for
look at me like
reminding us.
I'm the idiot.
I was reading chat. They said it was an insider, so I helped you out, so you didn't have to read it. You know, I'm ready for it.
You guys. So Pecan.
Way back on.
Pecan. I really relish and I enjoy being like public enemy number one for you, but I don't think that I am now public enemy number one. I think Mr. Dookie Pookie, whatever here, has now been the bullseye on the Pecan dartboard. The Portland Snowhawks drafted Pecan for his graphics. They didn't even want him as a player.
Go back to the tapes when his coach drafted him. It was in what, like the 4th round of the supplemental draft of day 2, day 4, day 5 of the
All right.
Supplemental draft.
Okay. All right.
Well, I mean, you're not wrong. You're not wrong.
Okay.
Here's the thing. If Pecan was taken in the 1st or 2nd round, I would have said, yeah, he's taken for his graphics and stuff. But I mean, when you're in the 4th round, Pecan, what round were you taking? I think it was 4th round, right? When you're taken in the 4th round.
All right, let's get back on schedule. On schedule.
I mean, listen, Fry, you were almost a 4th rounder.
Mm-hmm.
Fry was traded because someone forgot about him.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder who it was. Who could possibly have forgotten?
Well, I had
about
all of his yet at that time, but there was this weird scenario.
I will say, because we're on that point, and I think this is worth discussing. And now that we have all teams in one file, the draft is still going to be offline. I would imagine that will never change. The actual live online draft is amazing. I look forward to it every year, even though I get more and more gray hair in my head every year trying to prep for it. I do feel like we're not that far away from being able to make those draft day trades and things like in the middle of the draft. I know, Fry, we're talking about a minute ago, you're the only player that's ever been drafted or traded literally during the draft. And it was because of an unfortunate situation for the Oklahoma City Bisons, which turned out to be a great situation for us. And I was just kind of Johnny on the spot. But I do feel like there's a way that we could do it where you could be in the middle of the draft. Now, obviously, maybe not necessarily the one on the clock, or maybe you are the one on the clock, because I feel like, you know, there's been a lot of times where if you are picking 5th, let's say day 2 of the draft, right? I believe day 2 is the beginning of the 2nd round. Day 1 is all round 1. And then I think however we do it, let's say you're picking 5th in round 2. After round 1 is over, we can make trades. And so you could make a trade after round 1 before round 2 to try to move up. And let's say you're picking 20th and you're like, oh, I want to move up to, I can move up to 5th because there's a guy that I really want. And I think he'll be there at 5. But all of a sudden now round 2 starts. And what if that guy you wanted at 5 went 3? Now you're like, well, crap, I don't want any of these guys. And I just gave away stuff. So I do feel like there's got to be a point, and I know it's difficult, and I know it's not easy. Yeah, Smitty, this ought to make you feel good. As good as it makes Fry feel, it probably doesn't make Smitty feel too great, or it certainly doesn't make the Oklahoma City Bisons feel too great. Traded the wrong tight end that day. Yeah, who was it, Fry? Lucas Butler, was that right?
Yeah, remember.
You're on mute. Was it Butler?
I think he was a 2nd string tight end. They had a win on already. I would have legitimately said it third because I was normal dev at 74. I would have said it third string on the bike. I go to the minors and I completely break my amazing ability, pure handsome, and just the audacity that we brought in all together. So I'm happy about the trade. I'm not in any way still thinking about it.
I know. Okay, so I know we're talking about draft and whatnot. I did see a question from Jalen Brooks earlier. He wanted to know, if you think that Diggs will take over Javi's spot through the season.
No, I mean, we're talking about Javier Santana. Why would you? I didn't watch enough with Giovanni. Who are we talking about? Who's the quarterback that he thinks will take over?
Devin Diggs. He just got drafted this past draft.
I mean, I didn't watch a lot of tape on him clearly because I couldn't even tell you what school he went to.
Penn State, maybe.
He did go to Washington.
Devin Diggs went to Washington? No, Javier Santana went.
No, they both went to Washington.
UCLA?
I'm pretty sure Devin Diggs went to Washington. Then he had to make a new quarterback. Went to UCLA, unless it was flipped around. But they did.
The fact that we're flip flopping on all this and we don't even know where this kid went to college or what school he went to originally and then went to afterwards. No, Jalen Brooks. The answer to your question here is no. Javier Santana is not going to get benched. Javier Santana literally set the league on fire. He literally took a university that nobody heard of, no one cared about. Nobody cares. And Fry, it's one thing for Fry not to care because Fry doesn't care about anybody outside of Texas A&M. Okay, but Javier Santana took the Washington Huskies and put them on the map. They literally, if you watch the RFL podcast on a weekly basis 2 years ago, you would actually see the Washington Huskies logo. Their logo would be on the screen. Do you know how big of a deal that is for your logo to be on the screen? And then to top it all off, they were actually talking about the school. Like the words University of Washington were actually being said on a live podcast. Not Georgia, not Miami, not Texas A&M, not Oregon, not USC, Washington. That school had never been talked about. Javier Santana blew up the league. If memory serves, I think he won the Mackey, didn't he?
I don't remember.
If he didn't, I think he won Offensive Player of the Year. I think he led the league. I think he led the league in touchdowns. I think he led the league in yards. I understand he had a really good receiving core. But come on. We're talking about Devin Diggs? Why don't you go in the backyard and digs yourself a hole in the ground? Because that's where you are in the depth chart.
I couldn't remember Diggs' first name, and we had to guess what college he went to. So I'm going to assume based on that alone, obviously. I don't know what to tell you, Diggs. Be more memorable. Be funnier. Don't give yourself a nickname. We don't like that.
When Diggs becomes a starter, I'm going to bring this up. Remember that? Yeah, dude, do me a favor. You can put it on my tombstone because when that day comes, I'll be dead.
Smitty, Jalen Brooks clearly has two players. We need to cut this.
Yeah, for real. Smitty, can we check Jalen Brooks' burner account?
2 emails. Trying to pull a fast one. You're out.
Okay, so here's Pecan. Pecan, he won QB of the year. Offensive Player of the Year was Darnell Hodge. Yes, so, okay. He didn't win the Mackey. I believe the Mackey that year was Calvin Poole, right? Is that the same year?
Poole was McCain's year. So I think it was the same year.
Oh, okay. So it was the year after. So then it may have been the Mackey. Tyler Cage won the Mackey. That's right. Yeah. That's right. We had a defensive Mackey award. Yes. So, okay, we're talking about a quarterback that won QB of the year. And you're asking me if he's going to get benched for Devin. What was his last name?
Devin Diggs.
Devin, nobody cares.
No.
If I'm not mistaken, Devin Diggs is like a high 60s overall, while
somebody go on Neon. Oh, by the way, this is the perfect opportunity. The perfect opportunity to give a shout out to Smitty for getting Neon Sports back in the fold. For those of you that don't know, Neon Sports is amazing. I don't have to worry about it too much because I obviously have access to the league file. But for you guys that want to know all the things that we know as general managers and all the information, all the stats, the standings, the vitals, the heights, weights, all that stuff, go to Neon Sports. You can get amazing content and amazing information at Neon Sports for the entire league. So shout out to Smitty for getting that set up. I know that's something that I speak for every one of us GMs and probably every player out there. We really missed that. So that's amazing. But I say all that. Can somebody go on Neon Sports right now and find what's the guy's name? Dizzy Dean, Derek Dumpster Fire. What's
Devin
the guy's
Diggs.
name again? Devin Diggs.
Diggs.
Can somebody find me Devin Diggs? I mean, I can't, like, I know that oh God, I thought that Pecan was going to be the one that got the worst of Miners Live episode 1.
Okay, so Devin Diggs is a 66 overall, while Javi is a 72. And Devin Diggs is QB2.
Okay. I'm sorry. Jalen Brooks, was that your name? Okay.
Jalen Diggs, I think is how it's pronounced.
Yeah, it's pronounced Jalen Brooks, but it's pronounced Devin Diggs. Got it. So Derek Dumpster Fire will be named the starter week 12. I think that needs to be. Can you fit? How many characters can you fit on the back of your jersey? Like maybe his middle name, like maybe his his mom's maiden name. Maybe he changes his name to include. I don't know,
like
but I do think, yeah, like Derek Dumpster Fire, Devin Diggs. Okay, no. I don't think that he will. I can't believe we spent probably 20 minutes on this topic right now, but no, he's not going to take over Javier Santana. Javier Santana got an opportunity to start last year at the end of the year because the Pioneers had nothing to play for. They did everything right. You have a team that has an aging quarterback. They have nothing to play for. They have a rookie quarterback who was amazing in college. You don't know what you have until you put it on the field. And so Javier Santana went on the field. Did he light up the world? No. But if memory serves, I think he started 2 or 3 games and he didn't lose them all.
I think,
and I want to say there was one game where I thought he looked pretty good. So there is no chance. As a matter of fact, here we go. This is the first done deal of the year. This is the very first done deal. This is the inaugural, the number 1 first done deal of 2025.
What is it?
Derek Dumpster Fire, Devin DeMonte Diggs DeRapo will never.
Oh, shoot.
He said never.
I don't want.
He said never.
I'm going to say it. I'm going to say it. He will never start. He will never start an RFL game unless it's because of an injury.
Ooh, that's.
I don't even care if he gets traded.
Even if he gets traded, okay.
Like,
okay.
I mean, guys, you guys have been around the league long enough. And any of you guys in the chat who are like, oh my God, never. What are you talking about? You're an idiot. You guys have been around long enough. There's a couple things that I preach ad nauseum, and you guys, those of you out there, you either love me or you hate me. There's not a lot of middle ground, right? Like, I feel like a lot of you love me and a lot of you hate me, but regardless, I appreciate the fact that you're here. There's no such thing as bad publicity. But there's 2 things that I preach all the time. Number 1, this is the RFL. The RFL is the league, not the college series. I don't care what you did at, Rinky Dink University. I don't care what school you went to. I don't care how big your locker room was. I don't care that you had 200,000 reloads and you spent them all in college. Anybody who spends their reloads while they're in college, to me, is automatically moved down my draft board. I don't want you wasting your money in college. I could not care less about your college player going from a 75 overall to a 79 overall and still being third on his own depth chart. I don't care. Save your money and boost your player when you get to the RFL, because again, the RFL is the league. Okay. First and foremost. Now, the other thing that the other hill that I die on week in and week out, year after year, is that when you guys are creating players, and Rohan, I hope that you're still listening. I know that we talked recently, and I'm really excited about you finally having the opportunity to create a player and join the league. I will do everything I can to, when the day comes, draft you, because I know that it would be amazing for you. I know you've been, Sacramento Miner fan number 1 for 4 years. Well, as long as I've been here, so 3+ years now. As soon as you create a player, I will do everything I can to make sure that I get you on my team.
Collusion.
Under that being said, you can't create a quarterback.
Yep.
And I say that to Rohan, but really what I'm saying is to all of you. If you don't have a player out there, or you have a friend who doesn't have a player, you have a cousin, you have a brother, you have a dad, whatever it might be. If you know someone that is like, what is this league that you're in? That seems really cool. I want to get in. Great. Take their $15, give it to Smitty, and then punch them in the face if they create a quarterback.
Okay.
Do not create a quarterback, guys. The RFL is littered with young, talented quarterbacks. Every single one of you that is in the chat right now, I challenge you to go on to Neon Sports. Again, thank you very much, Smitty. Go on Neon Sports right now and find a team that you think is going to need a quarterback within the next 3 years. Because I get it. There are teams out there that have old players. I know there are 35-year-old quarterbacks out there, but I'm pretty sure every one of those teams that has a 34 to 35, 36-year-old quarterback, they drafted a quarterback already that they really like. Look at the Houston Voyagers, right? They have Glenn Hay, all-world Glenn Hay. But they also have Monty Wyatt. Monty Wyatt could have started for a couple other teams. So there's guys out there that are creating quarterbacks. And again, I get it, because it goes back to my other point. I just don't care about the college series. And I'm speaking from a GM, right? Like, I do care about the college series a lot, because that's where I get, to see the future of the league. But guys, look at the landscape of the RFL. If you are building a college quarterback and you are expecting to make it in the RFL, I don't want to say it's not going to happen, but it's going to be very rare. Like, I look at Miles McCain, I look at Jacob McCall, I look at Calvin Poole, I look at Monty Wyatt, Tajay Gaddy eventually, maybe Javier Santana, like those. That's it. After those guys, I don't know when you're going to join the league. Like the Sacramento Miners, the Houston Voyagers, the Toronto Huskies. Like, I could name probably 15 teams right now that they're not even looking at quarterback for 5 years. So Devin Diggs, congratulations. You balled out at whatever school you went to, UCLA, Washington. I don't know. You entered the transfer portal. We're going to see you on some RFL Kickoff Classic, and in the opening player introductions, you're going to be like Devin Diggs, Washington by way of UCLA, and then Oklahoma State, elementary, high school. Like,
I'm going to jump in real quick.
Go.
I want to come up from here for a second. We've been we've been hammering on Deputy Diggs here pretty hard for a couple minutes. And all of that started because Jalen Brooks is a heifer and wouldn't stop talking about it. So Diggs, value,
Okay.
nothing against you. Jalen Brooks put you in a weird situation, and then Ned Heifer didn't stop talking. So don't take it personal or make it multiple.
I will say, for hobby, like I know we probably wouldn't get away from this topic at hand. The only knock right now that I'd see for hobby is he's 5'9".
Yep.
So we don't know if he'll be able to see over his offensive line.
Well, no, we do know. We do know. He won't. He won't.
Yeah, he's gonna have to roll out.
Like, you can't.
Also, he's going to need to develop. He's going to need to develop.
But the best way to do that is playing. The best way to do that is to play.
Touche.
Right? I mean, the best way for Javier Santana, I'm actually, there's not a lot of other guys in the league that I get excited about watching, especially when we're talking about a quarterback, because I just took a quarterback and,
Hey, look, there's Devin Diggs right there.
Miles is going to be here forever.
Dude, Devin
So
Diggs is here.
he is a real person. Hold on. I don't believe this until we can get Devin Diggs timestamp at the same time as
52.
Jalen Brooks. Oh, we did. 8:52 p.m. 8:52. Okay, mark this down. Fry, mark this down. Bane, write it down in your book. 8:52 p.m. Eastern time on January 7th, 2025. We have confirmation, I think,
851.
that Devin Dumpster Fire. Sorry, you're here now, so I can't call you that. Devin Diggs,
847.
and Jalen Brooks are not the same person. The poor guy.
845. Okay, so he's been here for like about
2 burner
10
phones.
minutes or so.
I know. All right, Devin. Devin, if you weren't here earlier, like you got, this is Jalen Brooks, Devin Diggs. I promise you one thing. Maybe I'm wrong that you'll never start a game in the RFL, but I promise you I'm not wrong about this. This is the most your name is going to be coming out of anybody's mouth for the next 5 years. Like a solid 20 minutes talking about a 66 overall backup quarterback. I mean, that being said, I've got a 66 overall defensive end on my practice squad that I don't even talk about this much.
Jeez. Okay. All right. Anybody have any other questions?
No. Any other ones in the chat before we move on?
You've got to, Javier, if Javier sleeps, if Javier goes lazy and doesn't work, doesn't put in that effort, fix rookie quarterback.
Yeah, I think even then though, just the fact that he plays.
But you're going up against someone with accolades.
He's got to play well, though. That's the thing. He's got to play well.
Okay, so I don't agree. I don't think he has to play well.
Okay.
I think all Javier Santana has to do is be out on the field, and he's going to go from, what did we say? He was a 71?
He's a 72.
He's a 72. All he has to do is not get hurt, and he'll go from a 72 to a 74 this year. And that's just natural XP. I'm sure he'll probably go up 2 in regular in-game XP alone. And then I don't know how active he still is, but if he does anything to boost his player, if he has reloads, like he could become a 75 by the end of the year. That's regardless of how well he plays.
Okay, so we have another question from Pecan. How do we think Geno is going to do with that the Black Knights and that offense?
I guess the answer is I don't know, right? None of us know. Mm-hmm. Am I a little optimistic? Because I don't know if I'm super optimistic about year 1, but am I optimistic about year 2 and 3 and 4 with Amari? Like I do think that the combination of Geno Gannon and Amari could be something that we watch for years to come.
Yeah, they also have another rookie not rookie, but second-year player along with Amari Frederick, I believe his last name.
Oh, yeah. That was the kid from Washington. That was the one who made Santana quarterback of the year.
And then they have a third. I forget
Frederick
his name.
Irving. Yeah. Frederick Irving.
Frederick Irving. Yep. That's the
Hodge said at the same time.
Thanks, Hodge. And then they have a third wide receiver. I hate that I'm blanking on these names, but I guess it's just because I haven't really heard of them like that. But they have a third wide receiver, Hodge, or anybody who wants to help me out, who I believe Smitty is high on as well for the Black Knights.
I don't know. Go to Neon Sports. Pull it up.
That's right.
Pull up Neon Sports. Let's see how good it is.
Like I said, I think they have a tight end.
All right. So I wanted to spend a little bit of time because we went over the realignment, and if you get a chance, we can circle back to it. But we went over the realignment of the league, but I wanted to take some time to. What'd you say?
Ayush Patel.
Oh, okay. We went over the realignment, but I wanted to take a minute to kind of go over some of the news out of Sacramento for this year. So it's been a long off season, certainly longer than normal. We had about a year of nothing, which for some of you was amazing. For some of you was probably you didn't miss a beat because you just tuned into college. But throughout that year, you may have missed some things that went on. So while you were sleeping, if you will, in case you missed it, there are some things that happened in Sacramento. There's obviously the draft and some players that were drafted. We talked about Ajon Grant, who was, I believe, 14th overall at a USC. Steve Washington, who I believe was 23rd overall out of Louisville. We've got defensive tackle was a position of need because in the offseason, I traded Dominic Moore to the now Tampa Bay Tigers. And so defensive tackle was a position of need. In free agency, signed Jason Lindsley, who I believe was formerly with the Celtic Tigers, I believe.
And he was a defensive end, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, he was a really good defensive end with the Celtic Tigers, but actually works out really well for us as a defensive tackle. And even though we run a 3-4 mostly, the size is okay. Mm-hmm. And then in the draft, picked up Grant Spiller, who was a defensive tackle out of Florida State. So got a tight end to replace Moore in free agency. Also drafted one in the mid rounds that hopefully can develop. And then also still have Oscar Ayers, who was, I'll be honest with you guys, Oscar Ayers is probably my sentimental favorite player on the entire team. And I say that because he was a 7th round draft pick. I drafted Oscar Ayers 2 years, I think Fry, the same year that in your class, I drafted him in the 7th round. He was like middle of the 7th round. But I scouted him enough and I thought he would be good. And it turns out he was a 70 overall. So to get a 70 overall player in the 7th round is unheard of. If you look back at the archives of the draft last year, the year before, you're not going to find 70 overall players that late. And so Oscar Ayers is there. And then also addressed some depth at safety and drafted Paul Kilroy. So you guys have no idea who Paul Kilroy is. He's number 47 on the team. He's a generic. He's not even a generic. He was a Madden file draft eligible player. So there were certain guys that were just created in the file. They were not generics from the college series. They were not users. They were just guys that were in the actual file that Smitty made available for us to draft. For the most part, there's no one really good. There was probably like 3 guys that were a 70 or better. Paul Kilroy, I thought would be really good. I believe I drafted him in the 5th round. And he was a 74 overall. Like the guy I think he's going to be a monster for us, especially as the 3rd or 4th safety on our team. And the possibility of Patreoning him, I could feasibly get him to like a 79, maybe even an 80 overall by the end of the year, which would be amazing for a 5th round pick as a rookie. So outside of those guys, not really much in terms of our squad. Trying to think. Bane, I know you spent a bunch of time. So like Ajon, so real quick graphic on Ajon, 6'3", 220, came in as a 73 overall. He was the 14th overall pick. And then Steve Washington, 23rd overall, 6'1", 225, guys. Like, to me, that's just absolute ideal running back. 6'1", 225. He can run some dudes over. He's not, built like a twig. And he's got, I believe, 91 or 92 speed. So
93 speed, if I'm not mistaken.
Is it 93? So super excited about him. And he might not get as much playing time right away, but that's because I don't have to, because in the offseason, we were able to pick up veteran Denard Locker previously with the Chicago Cougars. So we're talking about a 93 overall, signed him to a 2-year deal. I don't even know if he'll be a starter in year 2. He's certainly going to be the starter this year, but Steve Washington will get some playing time. And then depending on what the offseason looks like, Lockers will be here again next year. But the split might be a little bit more 50-50, a little bit more leaning towards Washington come next year. But certainly Locker is expected to be a bell cow for us this year. Again, I talk about that prototypical running back that I like, 6 foot 229. You're talking about Steve Washington, 6'1", 225. Like, this is what I want my running backs to look like. And then the other big offseason free agent signing would be Brett Rattay, who was acquired previously from the Toronto Huskies, went into free agency, signed Brett Rattay, 2 years, $13.8 million. This is more of a depth player here for us. He's not going to see a ton of playing time, just basically because of the depth that we have at the position. Anton Burley, who was an outside linebacker, is shifting into middle linebacker. So Burley will be getting a lot of run at middle linebacker, Chad Heath at outside linebacker, and then obviously Bane, you on the right side.
Yep.
And
then
the biggest, and so not to make you guys wait any longer, but the biggest addition is coming up here. So to go back to like how this all started, right? So there was a trade made at the beginning of the offseason where I traded Damani Manuel, who was a captain on the offensive side of the ball, a mainstay here for the Conquistadors and then the Miners. But I just felt like I wasn't getting what I wanted out of him. He's still very young. He's an extremely high overall. So I moved on from Damani Manuel and traded Damani Manuel and the 18th overall pick to the Orlando Sentinels, and was able to get the 4th overall pick and the Sentinels' 3rd round pick. So basically, I moved up 14 spots in the first round from 18 to 4, and in doing so, I had to give up Damani Manuel. Now, it didn't take long for me to then parlay that 4th overall pick into Jedediah Richardson. So I then took that 4th overall pick, packaged it with the Huskies' 2nd round pick, and that same Sentinels 3rd round pick and moved back in the 1st round. So basically went from, what was it, pick 18 in the 1st round up to pick 4 in the 1st round, and then back to pick 23, and all the while got Jedediah Richardson. So when you're looking at it in the grand scheme of things, it basically turns into, we traded Damani Manuel for Jedediah Richardson, and instead of picking 18th in the draft, we picked 23rd, which we were able to get Steve Washington. And now the 14th overall pick, where we took Ajon Grant, that was acquired as part of the TJ Metcalf trade. We traded TJ Metcalf to the Wizards in exchange for that 14th overall pick. And then we now also have the Wizards' 2nd round pick next year. So next year we still have some good draft capital. So next year, I believe, I know we have it in our locker room, guys, but I believe we have our 1st round pick, but then we also have the Wizards' 2nd round pick. We have the Voyagers' 2nd round pick. And I think we have our own 2nd round pick, or maybe we don't have ours.
Not to mention, McCain had brought this up. Jed is also only 21 years old.
Right.
21.
Right. So think about Jedediah Richardson right now. I believe he's an 84 overall linebacker. To put this into perspective, to give you some context here, he's 21 years old. He's 84 overall. Tyler Cage, who was the 1st overall pick in the draft, is 21 years old, and I think 83 overall, 84 overall, right? So basically, Jedediah Richardson, again, I'm not saying they're the same player, but just if you're looking at age and you're looking at overall, to be able to get that caliber of player, for me, I thought was well worth giving up the 4th round pick. And I didn't even really, it's not like I just gave up the 4th round pick. I moved back. I still had a 1st round pick. So for me, I love the moves. I'm excited about this team. There's a lot of shakeup. It looks a lot different. That's why I kind of wanted to go over this with obviously you guys here who already knew this, but for a lot of you guys in the chat, those of you that aren't that familiar with the makeup of the Sacramento Miners, that's kind of where we stand right now. After all the free agent acquisitions, the trades that were made, and then also recently having announced the captains for season 9 for the 2025 campaign. We have I think I'm going to move from right end to left end, Antonio Griggs. That still remains to be seen. I think I might kind of move him around. I think he might get time at both right and left side of the field.
Nice.
And then also on the defensive side of the ball, Last Chance, and obviously your boy here, Killian Bain. And then on the offensive side of the ball, we have everyone's favorite Uncle Buck Ulbrich, and then Miles McCain at quarterback, and then everybody's favorite pessimist, Anthony Fry here, leading the charge here. So those are your 6 captains for the Sacramento Miners this year. I know you guys already knew that. Many of you in the chat, if you follow at Miners RFL on Twitter or at Miners RFL on Instagram, you probably knew that. I did towards the end of the year, I did the 6 days of Minermas. Basically, after Christmas leading into the new year, I dropped 1 captain per day from Christmas Day all the way up to New Year's Day. And now we officially have our captain's room with these 6 guys here that you see on the screen. So I guess, Bri, I will kick it over to you here. Any thoughts on where we stand right now and what you're most excited for as we head into the RFL Kickoff Classic, which is less than 6 days away? 5 days away?
Did immediately. The guy was great. The guy was unbelievably excited. Immediately They had
Is he breaking up for y'all too?
Yeah. Fry, you're cutting out. You there?
I'm here if you can hear me.
Okay.
There he
Yeah,
is.
go ahead.
I was just saying the moment Jed of the trade with Jed, he showed up immediately, put himself to work. He was in the locker room, one of our guys right away. Same mentality as us. Good attitude. And in there talking and trying to get everybody ready. He's just the finesse of that trade and the way it worked out on paper and in the spirit. It's awesome. It's what it feels good when it works out that way.
Yep.
And one other thing I want to touch on is we also signed Guyton at receiver, and so
Drayton.
Not
Yeah.
Guyton. Not Guyton. Don't get us
Yeah.
in trouble. Not Guyton.
No, I wish. Sorry, Douglas Drayton. I wish.
but yeah, and so adding that receiver to Buck and to Pavo and to Connor Jameson, who's picking up big time, one of offensive weapons. The Denard Locker signing, I feel like I feel like big for us too. If we can get that guy to run like he's supposed to run and put his head, I think we've got a really dynamic offense. I think McCain has so many weapons right now, and I think our defense got scarier. We already had a good defense. We were building our team around. Our defense kept in the division, and we added pieces. So I think it's going to be good.
Yeah, I don't disagree with anything that you just said, even though I couldn't hear half of it because you were cutting in and out. But yeah, Douglas Drayton, who was acquired as part of the Dominic Moore trade. So the trade with the Tigers, I don't remember all of it off the top of my head, but it was basically I traded Dominic Moore to the Tigers, and in exchange, I got Douglas Drayton, he's an old hat. He's a 32-year-old, but he's a veteran receiver. He's got great route running skills. He can run the entire route tree. He's got good speed. He's a great complement to Buck Ulbrich, right? Because Ulbrich is kind of your bigger, he's technically not a physical archetype, but he plays like a physical receiver. And Drayton is a little bit more the opposite. I think that one thing that we didn't have in years past was that guy that I knew was always going to be in the slot. And so Douglas Drayton is a guy that can play in the slot. He has all the skills to be a good slot receiver. So he'll be a great addition. Obviously, Ajon Grant via the draft. We still have Pavo Frederick, who, again, 21, I believe Pavo's 22 years old. He's an 80 overall. He's a star dev. Like, Pavo's a dude. And then obviously Connor Jameson, who's one of the fastest receivers in the league. So the receiving core is there. The talent is there. And then on the defensive side of the ball, obviously we have the upgrade at linebacker with Jedediah Richardson. A couple years ago, I had to make the difficult decision to get rid of and part ways with AJ Pestock. And the reason why I made that decision was because Pestock was getting a little bit older. And he was also entering, he was not in his walk year, but he had 1 year. He was the year before his walk year. And I knew that I was going to have a hard time resigning him. So I made a deal, moved Pestock, got some serviceable linebackers, right? Gabe Gales, Chad Heath, to kind of take the helm, the reins a little bit. And then when the opportunity came up to make the deal with the Snowhawks to get Richardson, to me, it was a no-brainer. Fry, I think we've had this conversation before. You were taken. So Richardson was taken, I believe, with the second pick in the second round of that draft. And I believe you were taken with the ninth pick or the eighth pick or something of the second round in that draft. And I had the 12th or the 13th pick in that draft. So when round two started, I had Richardson was my number one player on my board. and you, Fry, were my number 2 player on my board. So at pick 12 or 13, I forget where I was, my pick was going to be Richardson. And then he got drafted by the Snowhawks. And I was like, okay, my pick's going to be Fry. And then you got drafted by the Bisons. And then I don't want to say I panicked, but I wanted a linebacker. I felt like I needed a linebacker. So I ended up going the linebacker route. And that's where we ended up with Kenny Forrester. Kenny Forrester didn't quite work out the way I wanted it to. Kenny Forrester has now moved on, and we traded Forrester to the Voyagers. That's actually how we now have the Voyagers' second round pick next year. So next year, Bane, did you look it up? I forget. Do we have our own second round pick still?
I believe we
next
have.
Year?
I'm pretty sure we have 3.
I know we have the Wizards.
3.
I know we have the Wizards here. I have it right here. Trade tracker. So next year we have our first, and then we have the Voyagers second, which we got from the Kenny Forrester deal. We have the Marshalls second, which we got in the TJ Metcalf deal, and then we have our own second. So we have 4 picks next year in the first 2 rounds. So again, great opportunity to get some really good.
Oh, did he? Okay.
Sorry, I think I cut out there. I think I froze on you guys for a minute.
Yeah, you did for a bit.
Okay.
There he is.
Well, what did we do? No, we went. So yeah, really exciting to have those 4 picks.
Yep.
Because you forget how valuable that second round can be, right? When you're talking about user created players and you've got 75 to 125 user players. Granted, all of them, they're not all built the same. They don't all address needs that your team has. They're not all as active as you would like them to be. But certainly there's, a good 10 to 15, 20 to 25 good active players on a year-to-year basis. I think those second round picks will be pretty good. But yeah, that's probably going to do it. I think I'm going to go back out to the chat here for you guys. See if you guys have any last minute questions on anything. But again, the RFL Kickoff Classic, Sacramento Miners on the road, taking on the London Bulldogs. For those of you that didn't know, the London Bulldogs took home the Natty. They took it home. They won the RFL Championship, the Relo Bowl, as we affectionately refer to it. Hodge, don't tell me it's not called the Natty. I know it's not called the Natty. It's the Relo Bowl. Someone inevitably is going to write in the chat. Who do you guys think is the first person in the chat?
It's going to be Smitty because he's a minute behind.
Yeah, that's the problem. Some of these guys are a minute behind. Drayton got traded twice in a year. I don't know. I'm going to be honest with you, Mix. I don't know where Drayton was prior to the Tigers. He was only on the Tigers for 1 year. That's news to me. So I don't know. You would probably know better than I would if he was on a different team the year before. You may have faced him. You've been Voyagers to the Tigers. Okay. So Douglas Drayton was on the Voyagers, traded to the Tigers, and then now traded from the Tigers here.
Yeah, see, there it is. The Natty.
Oh, there it is.
I called it.
There's your boy. I called it. I called it. I called it. I absolutely called it. Guys, I didn't think it would be you. I didn't think it would be you.
Oh, God.
Oh, yeah. Now he's calling psych.
All right.
Tell me how old you are without telling me how old you are. Psych. All right, guys, a couple more minutes here, and then we'll get out. If you have any comments, questions, concerns, you want to take me to task, maybe while I was going off on a rant, you did some fact checking and you want to prove me wrong on something, I'm here for that. And also, I think it's important to note because, again, I mentioned that, some of you might love me and some of you might hate me. I feel like that was the case with a particular segment that I had last year. And I just want you guys to know that I'm bringing that segment back. So if you have topics or suggestions that you would like to see a part of Love It or Shove It, that will be coming back this year. So if you don't know, this is basically a statement, right? Like it can be a hot take, it can be outlandish, it can be common sense, whatever. The idea here is I'm going to say something and you are either going to love it, you agree with it, or you're going to shove it, you think it's ridiculous, no way, right? So love it or shove it. If you guys have some things that you would like to see discussed and debated next week as part of Love It or Shove It, send them my way. As always, guys, you can DM me anytime you want if you have things that you want me to discuss, if you have questions that you want me to answer. A lot of times, people don't, you might have questions, but you don't want to ask the question on a public forum. Anytime you want me to address something and you want it to be anonymous, I will do that. So by all means, hit me up, DM me if you have any questions, topics that you'd like me to discuss, things that you'd like me to go over. But most importantly, guys, if you have something that you are genuinely curious, right? What does the rest of the league think? Because this isn't about me. What does the rest of the league think? Think of something that you think could divide the league, right? Some people might think this and some people might think that. What is that? And that is what I want you to send me for Love It or Shove It. Does the league love it? Does the league shove it? So we'll get into Love It or Shove It next week. And then we will also be bringing back, maybe not next week, because I won't really have a chance to go over much of gameplay or anything until next week's episode. But I will also be bringing back where Dunner was right and where Dunner was wrong. So those of you that know me know I will tell you when I was right and you were wrong. But I will also tell you when I was wrong. I say things that end up being proven incorrect. I predict things that end up not happening. Such as life, that happens. So if this is your opportunity to take me to task a little bit here, guys. If you have something that you heard, something that I said on a previous episode of Miners Live, or maybe I said it in the Discord, maybe I said it in a chat somewhere. If you find something that I have previously said and I have been since proven right or since proven wrong, send it to me in a DM and say, hey, where Dunner was wrong, ... You said this would happen and it didn't. Okay. I love it. Send it all to me. If I have one thing that I was right about and 5 things that I was wrong about, that could happen too. But guys, this is all for you. We want you to be more engaged. We want you to be interactive and active. I know that I'm super excited about the league. We'll get out of here in a couple of minutes, but before we do, Fry, I know you said you got to jump out in a minute, so I'll let you. Any parting words here from the captain here, Fry? What do you got? Hopefully we can hear you.
I'm just excited that this is back. I'm excited we're all back, and I'm excited to get the healthy RFL action back and going again. Your days are more fun when this stuff's going and it's flowing, so I'm pretty excited.
For sure. Well, we appreciate you. I'm glad you were able to hop on today. Like I said, I know you got to jump off. Good to see you as always. And we will see you on Monday night. The captain, everyone, Anthony Fry. Bane, any last parting words for you here before we get out of here?
Well, first and foremost, I hope that everyone stays healthy. I want to play everyone at their best, however that may look. I know it's going to be a big task for us, especially with week 1 against the reigning defending Real Bowl champions, the Bulldogs. Obviously, I have faith in us. Whether we win or keep it close, I believe there is a chance. Obviously, loving the fact that Smitty brought back Neon. That's a whole just sigh of relief. Diggs ended up started at some point in the season without injury. Best believe.
I mean, that's it. That's it right there. Like that's the kind of stuff, right? If Devin Diggs ends up starting at some point this year, that's going to be where Dunner was wrong, right? 100% where Dunner was wrong.
Said it. You didn't say anywhere. You said anywhere. He's not starting
anywhere. Well, he's not going to get traded. He's a rookie. He's not going to get traded. So it can't happen this year. Like, why on earth? If it happens, okay, you know what? You know what? This is where it's not fair. And I solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And Smitty, I'm looking directly at you right now. Okay? I'm looking directly at you. If Devin Diggs starts a game this year, and it's not because Javier Santana got hurt, it's because you just don't like me and you want me to be proven wrong. That's it. I said it. And you all know it. You all know it. It's a fact. It's just the way that it is. You play to win the game. That is the way that it is. You're not starting Devin Diggs. I love you, Devin Diggs. By the way, send me a DM and I'll if you send me a DM that says I'm not really mad at you, I will I'll send you out some Miners swag. But for real, I just don't see it happening. Here we go. Fry, if Diggs gets a start, he can have my seat. Absolutely.
That's crazy.
Absolutely. Devin Diggs can come on and we can talk about how you performed in your RFL debut.
That'd be a good.
Right after we talk about where Dunner was wrong.
That'd be a good one. But yeah, like I said, I hope we all stay healthy.
Chosen, sorry, Bane. I'm trying to get through some questions here. Chosen, it's at London. It's the RFL Kickoff Classic, so it's always going to be the defending Real Bowl champions are going to have the first game of the year at home, just like they do in the NFL. Whoever wins the Super Bowl plays the first game of the year on that Thursday night at home. The way we do it in the RFL now is we're going to have whoever wins the Real Bowl will have that home game, but only we're going to do them on Monday night. I'm obviously speaking for Smitty here. I assume that is something that would be the norm moving forward. After all, I did just name it the RFL Kickoff Classic. So hopefully it is every Monday. There we go. And I've already got a guest. For those of you that didn't know, I already have a guest for next week's show. So I appreciate that. Producer Smitty helping me out here, helping me get guests. I don't even have to do any work. I can now take the rest of the week off and try to figure out a game plan for the London Bulldogs. I no longer have to worry about a guest, as on next week's episode of Miners Live, we will have Devin Diggs will be on the show because Smitty is obviously going to have the Pittsburgh Pioneers starting at 0-1 on the year.
Javi's going to have a field day with that.
Because Javi's going to be on the bench.
Javi's going to have a field day seeing that all game.
I know. I'm excited. Now what this does mean is I absolutely 100%, regardless of who the quarterback is, it's going to be Javier Santana. As much as Smitty might want to make me look like a fool, he loves Javier Santana. So he's not going to slight Javier Santana just to make me look like an idiot. So I can make myself look like an idiot on my own, Smitty. You don't need to start Devin Diggs just to make me look like an idiot.
He said that if we play the Pioneers, he's going to have Diggs debut then.
Could you imagine a world where we play the Pioneers, he starts Devin Diggs, and we lose the game?
Oh my God.
I think I would retire.
I'm gonna have to get some late hits then.
I think I would pull a Roland and like retire / get fired and then be like, can I coach a different team now?
No.
But yeah. All right. We'll get out of here in a minute, unless there's any other questions. What did Mick say? If Diggs ever touch the field, I need to reevaluate.
All the nods that somebody gave him.
Yeah, I mean, listen, even Devin Diggs knows, right? Like he knows the situation.
Yeah. At the end of the day, he just wants he wants to contribute just like the rest of us, and obviously quarterback's one of the hardest positions to start in the RFL because of the landscape of it all. He just so happens to be a part of a team that has another young quarterback who still needs to develop as well. So, I mean,
yeah. All right, so Smitty's got something here. This is how old I am. I don't know what LSTG stands for.
I swear to God.
Oh, okay. If that happened and he won, you have to be banned from ever participating in any Sims. I think, are you referring to like the practice sims that we run? Because you can ban me from ever participating in practice sims, because lately it doesn't matter. You're changing the settings every day. So every time I run a sim, it doesn't matter what it looked like, because I got to wait for you to change the settings again. And then I got to run 5 more sims to try to figure out whether my team's going to look good with the new settings. And oh, wait, now I got to pick a different playbook and blah, 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 blah.
He said all sim leagues.
All sims. All sim leagues. Oh, sim leagues. All right. Either way, basically that little rant was for you, Smitty. Are we officially confirmed on the settings? Are we locked in? Because I as of right now, I don't think we are. Maybe we are. I know you made some changes yesterday and the day before. But yeah.
All right, then we're just gonna wait for that answer.
I know we were at All Madden, then we went to All Pro, but now we're at Pro.
He's gonna try rookie next.
Oh God. I mean, I do like Pro. I've done other leagues or just in my own like offline dynasty franchise.
Mm-hmm.
I've done Pro. I do think that when you take the abilities off, you tend to see teams play more with what their attributes are.
These are set, but
so
the QB slider will be the only thing.
What's he say here? So here we go, guys. For those of you that were actually asking, this is why you love me, because I asked the questions that you were all too afraid to ask or just forgot about. These are set. He's referring to the sliders, but the QB slider will be the only thing to change. You know, sliders usually aren't set anyway until about week 3 or 4. So yeah, I mean, ideally it would be nice if they're set. There's nothing worse than, starting the year 0-3 and then all of a sudden the sliders change and then you win a bunch of games or vice versa. So it is what it is. It's sometimes the nature of the league and the structure and things we have to deal with in the format and the game that we're playing. So you guys heard it. It looks like by and large, for the most part, the sliders are set. The only thing that might change is the QB, which I assume that is the QB accuracy and only that. So I don't know if that means wide receiver stuff also, because that goes hand in hand with the QB, or if it's just QB. I don't know. Either way, the Sacramento Miners play the London Bulldogs in the RFL Kickoff Classic Monday night. I do not know what time it is yet. Smitty will probably announce that in the next day or two. I don't know if there's going to be an official RFL podcast tomorrow. Again, stay tuned to the Discord channels. That's something that Smitty will announce, as well as the schedule. You know right now that the Miners and Bulldogs are playing on Monday night. But what you don't know is what the rest of the schedule and what the rest of the week will look like. What games will be broadcast live, what games will be premier games over the weekend. All of that stuff will be released in the coming days. Again, Monday night kickoff, RFL Kickoff Classic, Sacramento Miners at London Bulldogs for my good buddy, Anthony Fry, even though he's a pessimist and he thinks the world is ending. He is a great man, and to that, I salute you, my friend. And to my good buddy, Killian Bain, the newly appointed captain, one of three captains on the defensive side of the ball.
I'm honored.
Oh, wait, hold on. The whole league schedule format is changing. It won't be the same at all. Oh boy, geez. Ooh. Okay, so I assume so. This is interesting. So earlier on, I don't know if Smitty was even listening when I said this. Earlier on, I said historically we had like one game on Thursday, one game on Friday, and then like 2 games on Saturday, a bunch on Sunday, one on Monday. I assume what Smitty is saying here is that schedule format is going to be changing. Obviously, we can't really change the format of the schedule in the file because certain games have to be played before other games.
Yep.
I believe. I think you have to. I think if you have if in the file, I think you have to play our game first because it's Thursday. I don't think you can broadcast a Sunday game and then broadcast a Thursday game. I could be wrong. I don't know. But if I'm reading this correctly, guys, it looks like the actual broadcast format is going to be different. So maybe it won't be, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I would imagine it would be fewer days. That would make sense. Give Smitty a little extra time off. Give Mick some time off if they're calling games together. So I would imagine that would make sense. Maybe there will be just a ton of games on Sunday. Maybe we'll have 10 games on Sunday, and
yeah, you got to take into effect. There's not going to be any auto wins anymore, so it's going to be even more games per week now because everybody's going to be facing each other.
I mean, obviously, I would imagine there's going to be designated days off where there's nothing. Like I would imagine Tuesday nights, there's never going to be any games. Smitty knows better than to put a game up against Miners Live. You're never going to win. And then Wednesday nights are historically the RFL podcast. So Tuesday and Wednesday, it doesn't seem like there would ever be games. Maybe you want to take away Thursday. Totally get it. Maybe even take away Friday. Totally get it. Give you more time to pre-record Premier games that would go live and maybe have 4 or 5 games on Saturday, 6 or 7 games on Sunday. I don't know. Regardless of what the schedule is, regardless of what the format is, stay tuned in the Discord, guys. Stay tuned. If you're not following the RFL on Twitter and on Instagram, certainly make sure that you're following along in the Discord. And as always, please, if you get a chance, at Miners Live on Twitter, at Miners Live on Instagram, use the hashtag Gold Rush. We're back at it for season 9, looking to pick up our 4th consecutive division title.
Let's do it.
So that will be the goal for this season. And again, for Killian Bain, I am the general manager, owner, head coach, and host of Miners Live and of the Sacramento Miners. Chris Dunn, wishing you all a good week. Safe travels if you're going anywhere, but don't go too far because I expect you to be back 5 days from now. Monday night, we will have the RFL Kickoff Classic, the Sacramento Miners versus the RFL champion London Bulldogs. Until then, thank you for tuning in. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, thumbs up, turn the notifications on, all that good stuff. And we'll see you guys on Monday night. Take care, everybody.
Have a good night, y'all.